November 2011, they called us for a meeting saying, we cannot do anything about your papers. All our applications got denied. So they could not renew our work permit.
Oh.
And then at that same time, I think a few weeks after that, we received a letter from the immigration saying, you have 3 months to leave the country.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Our Lives Narratives. This platform gives everyday people the opportunity to share their stories and experience. And today we have an amazing guest, and I cannot wait for us to meet her. This individual is no other than Frances. Frances, you are welcome to this podcast.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
So, Frances, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to us?
Yeah. So, hi, my name is Frances, registered nurse in Edmonton, Alberta. I'm originally from the Philippines.
All right. So I'm excited to know a little bit more about the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
So Frances, why don't you tell us what it was like, Frances, a little girl growing up in the Philippines?
So I'm the eldest of 3 siblings. My grew up in a small city in the Philippines called Baguio City. It's considered the coldest city in the Philippines. Once upon a time, it was called the summer capital of the Philippines because the weather is just lovely. It's cool, not hot. I know a lot of people would think Philippines is a tropical country, but the city I grew up with is up in a mountain and it's very cold.
So you mentioned a conversation in the past that growing up, you were torn between 3 different careers. Why don't you tell us about those careers and what attracted you to them?
Yeah, so actually growing up, when I was little, I grew up in a Catholic family. I see whenever we go to the church, I see nuns praying all day long. So one day I told myself, I'm like, when I grow up, I'd probably be a nun. But then I have a lot of aunts as well that are teachers. So then I considered teaching. So when I was a little girl, I was teaching my stuffed toys. And then I don't know how it came to my mind. Like one day I just wanted to be a doctor. So I was tending to my stuffed toys. I was healing them by stitching when they're broken. So I thought I'd be a doctor one day. But here I am. I'm a nurse.
Oh.
I chose to be a nurse.
It is a rewarding career.
It is, yes.
I can attest to that because I myself, I'm a registered nurse.
Yes.
So I understand you are very studious and you were a honor student all throughout your schooling, and possibly another reason why you wanted to be a medical doctor. So that didn't work out. You're now a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to that dream?
Well, being in a med school, first of all, in the Philippines, it's very expensive. It'll be hard to go to university and study as a doctor because you have 4 years of pre-med and then you go to the med school. But it's I didn't come from a rich family. We're mediocre family. My parents worked so that they're able to sustain our lives. And in the Philippines, unlike here, when you enter university, students here, they start working already, do part-time job. But in the Philippines, most parents would like to send their kids without kids having to worry about school fees. So my parents worked hard. I wanted to be in the med school, but I realized it'll be too expensive for my parents. So, but planning-wise, I was planning my life that one day if I'd be a doctor, at least my pre-med is there. So I went into nursing as a pre-med. As part of my plan to be a doctor, I went into nursing so that nursing would be my pre-med. So after finishing nursing, tried to look for jobs, but then after finishing nursing, I still wanted to go to med school, but I wanted to start saving money as a nurse so that I could help my parents with paying for my school fees as a doctor. But things didn't turn out as planned because later on, 2 years after graduating from nursing, I'm here in Canada.
Okay. All right. And we're going to touch on that experience, your journey from the Philippines all the way to present. Present Frances.
Yes.
All right. Well, I would say kudos to you because you have other siblings, and definitely with the expenses going to med school, that would have pulled from like the money that your parents will invest in your other siblings. So what a selfless act that you did there. I'm sure your siblings are very grateful that you had to give up in a way, right? Think about their own education as well. So talking about nursing, being a nurse myself, I know graduating from high school, of course, getting into the nursing program is quite competitive. You need to meet certain requirements to get in. But all really that you needed is that grade. If the school needed 80%, that's all you need from your overall grades from high school, from 12th grade. What is the process of getting into nursing school in the Philippines? Because I know it's a little bit different.
So in the Philippines, some universities, they have what do you call entrance examinations. So the university that I chose to study, well, in my city, because I came from a small city compared to Manila, which is the major city in the Philippines.
Okay.
Manila is the capital city, and there's a lot of good nursing schools in that part of the Philippines. But my dad didn't want me to go that far because I'm my dad's little princess. I'm the firstborn, so he doesn't want me far away from them. So he's like, try your best to stay within the city. So one of the university I went to is one of top performing nursing school in the Philippines. It's considered one of the top performing schools. For me to get into that program, though, there's an entrance exam that you have to take. And also part of their nursing program, they only screen a certain number of students to be in that program. So as a first-year nursing student, they accepted 1,500 students. And then towards the third year of nursing, because the first 2 years of that nursing practice is considered equivalent to an LPN here in Canada. But getting into the third year of nursing, they screened more. So then out of the 1,500 students that entered initially, then we were left with 500 students in that nursing program to finish until the fourth year.
Well, and you definitely made that because you're so smart.
Yes, I was so nervous checking that list of students if I made it into the 500 students because that's more than half of the 1,500 students that were screened out. So
right. So what happened to the other
some of
1,000?
Some of them, they would have gone to different nursing schools.
Okay.
But yeah, because that specific university, they have that process. So the other nursing schools, there's still other nursing schools in the city, but they just don't have that same process as mine. So
I'm just curious to know a little bit more about like nursing school compared to, well, I want to compare nursing school in the Philippines to what I experience here.
Okay.
The practicum, that theory, like what is it like being in nursing school in the Philippines as a student?
I've never been like you said, I studied nursing and you studied in here, but in the Philippines. So when you get into third year, so for the first and second year of nursing, mostly you just in the classroom.
Okay.
So you're just in the classroom for the first 2 years studying like the basics, microbiology, stuff like that, anatomy and physiology. That's it. When you get into the third year, then they start putting you, they're rotating you in different units in the hospital. So you get rotated all over. You go to pediatrics, medicine unit, surgery, you get into the operating room. Also, there's one, they also put in psychiatric units. One thing that I really enjoyed is the community immersion, because you get to live in that community. And the thing is, in the Philippines, it's considered a third world country, so they take us to communities where they're poor communities, considered the poorest community in the Philippines, where they don't have easy access to healthcare.
Right.
So as students, we were placed there. So yeah, it was a good experience.
Yeah, so it's kind of similar in the sense that your first year, you're just getting, just like the general. Like if we even take courses with the RN student take courses with the mental health, like psychiatric nurses as well in year one. So like your basics, anatomy and all of that, right? And then year two, that's when you start doing like your core nursing courses. In terms of placements, you start like, generally how to make beds,
Yes.
Things like that. Because you're getting into a field where that human interaction is key, right? So it's not really, the theory is great, but that human aspect, has to be demonstrated as well. So they start introducing you to those things like making beds, just interacting with clients and all that. And then we do have placements in medicine units, but from my experience, like I don't think they send students to places like ICU or OR. You get to when you get to your final practicum in your fourth year, that's when you can choose. So I like this the way they do it in the Philippines, where you get introduced already to places like emergency, ICU. One, you already get a sense of what it's like. So you're not going to spend 10 weeks of practicum on a unit or in an environment that you don't enjoy. Like you won't succeed, right? So I like that. And I also like the community. We do have community placement as well. But of course, cater to what the demographics that we do have here, right? But I like the fact that you get immersed into the culture, because that empathy aspect of nursing, like the lived experience, if you don't go through that, like how can you care for your patients?
That's true.
Right? So I really like we do, there's emphasis on that as well. Like for community placement here, they do send us to mental health facilities, schools. So that's our own community in our own way.
Yeah.
So basic, pretty similar, but there is, of course, areas where I think is really good to start developing that relational aspect of nursing.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the community immersion because when I think so, starting third year and fourth year, there's two different communities where they assigned us. So third year was totally different, fourth year was different, and then 3 days of the week you get to spend and live your life. We get to live in that community for 3 days with the locals in that community. So like we get to experience everything that they go through during the day.
That's amazing.
I really enjoyed it.
That's good. So now, another thing that I understand, getting into the nursing, getting into nursing, all you need is, of course, get your degree, right? And you're in good standing. You pass all your classes, right? And then you can even transition to a graduate nurse while you're waiting to write your NCLEX exam, your licensure exam. So like if you are one of those students that, started working, on the side from healthcare aides, like you have that opportunity as well. At certain times as you progress higher in the program, you can work as a healthcare aide. You can work as an undergraduate nurse, which is similar to LPN, and then graduate nurse. So while you're waiting to write your exam, I mentioned you could work as a graduate nurse.
Mhm.
And then immediately you pass your exam, you transition your license from graduate nurse to, a registered nurse. But I understand that's different in the Philippines. Why don't you explain that to us?
Yeah, so it is really very different. Like, because in the Philippines, there's a lot of nursing students that would have graduated at the same time as mine. So after you graduate from the degree, so we also have our licensure examination in the Philippines. So you also have to pass that before you get your license to practice as an RN. But the difference is here, there's a lot of jobs readily available for, there's a lot of opportunities for fresh graduates. But in the Philippines, it's a little difficult to get into those jobs. For mine, my experience was that in the city where I lived, where I graduated, in some hospitals, like especially the government hospitals, they have what they call like the postgraduate training nurse, where I have to pay so that I could work. Well, they would consider it as an experience working because you're working with your own license. But for me to be able to do, we call it volunteer. So, but I had to pay. I did 2 of those. So one of those program would be 3 months long. So I took 2 of those programs. But even to get into that program is also a little difficult because there's a wait list. So in the Philippines, it's very big where when you know somebody already within the system, then that's how you get into it. So for me, I was also on the wait list, but my mom knew somebody also who works in the hospital. So somehow for those 2 programs, I managed to get in because of that connection. So that's what I did. So I did 2 programs, one in the pediatrics and one in the medicine unit. So in total, I did that for 6 months. It actually was a staggered one because I did one right after I graduated. I did pediatrics, but then even getting into, so they say after 3 months of volunteer, you have the opportunity to apply for postings in the hospital. But then again, I don't know like somebody who's bigger in the hospital, so I couldn't get into the actual jobs, not the volunteer.
Right.
So it was getting frustrating for me. So what I did was I went into teaching English, Korean students. So in the Philippines at that time, there's a lot of Koreans coming into the Philippines to study English. So it was an opportunity for me. So I wanted to start making money already because I've graduated school. So there's nothing else to do for me but to make money, but there's no opportunity for nursing. So I went into teaching English for Korean students. And then after a while, I got bored. I got bored with that. So I went back to the postgraduate training. So I went in 3 months in the medicine unit again. But then still there was no opportunity. But in that already, I started sending applications like overseas, but it's not easy. So then my uncle knew somebody who is from Canada. She doesn't work for any hospital. She doesn't work for any facility, but this person has connections to other people as well. So my uncle told me, he's like, give me your resume. I knew somebody who is from Canada. There's a company that's looking for RNs. So I gave my uncle my resume, but at that time I was still in that program, the volunteer program in the hospital. But then months came, I didn't hear anything. So I'm like, maybe it's just, something, it's nothing really serious. So maybe they didn't look into my resume. So then after that, one of my friends who used to be a teacher in the same, the English teacher, one of my friends, she was also an RN in the Philippines. She told me about this opportunity. There's a family who is looking for a private nurse. So I'm like, okay, let me make some money as a nurse. So I took care of an older lady. She's got some dementia. It's not really like a full scope nursing. I only was taking care of one patient pretty easily, like just turning because she's got some pressure ulcers and just the feeding. So that's at that time now I received word from
Wow.
the application that I submitted in Canada. So then to come to Canada
Right.
as a nurse, we have to apply for a work permit.
Okay.
We applied for the work permit June of 2010. I got my work permit. So then I flew to Canada. When we came here, there were 13 of us. We were given the title as practical nurses. We're not licensed practical nurses in here, but at that time when we landed here, there was no easy way for an RN from the Philippines to transition into Canadian RN. So the company who hired us helped us get into practical nursing. So we came in here with that title, but we're not actually licensed. So they help us go to Norquest.
So thanks, Frances. So, but I want to make a note though. It's similar in Sierra Leone. Like you need to know people within certain sector to get in. So that's not uncommon for us as well. And also, here you are again. You wanted to be a teacher, right?
Yes.
And now you find yourself teaching.
Teaching, yes. I taught English as a secondary language to Koreans.
At least once in your life, you got,
Yes.
to do what you wanted to, part of what you wanted to do.
Yes,
growing
actually,
up.
yeah. That's actually true. I never realized that, but yeah, it's actually I told you earlier on I wanted to be a teacher. So
Right.
somehow I did that.
So I'm happy you were able to experience teaching in a different way. Awesome. So you had the opportunity to come to Canada, right? What was the process, to come to Canada as a nurse? What was that process like? And how did you get the contacts to even get into the process of applying to come to Canada as a nurse?
Actually, it was from a lot of people coming to Canada as a nurse is a long journey. I know some people who would also go like to agencies just to get into apply for nursing jobs through those agencies. But for me, it was direct from an employer. So there's an employer in Canada, in Edmonton, who was looking for nurses from the Philippines. So my uncle told me about this lady that he knows. It was another connection of my uncle. So he told me, give me your resume. I know somebody from Canada who's looking for nurse. There's a company in Canada looking for nurses. So immediately I gave my resume to my uncle. Months I didn't hear about it. So I thought it was just, maybe I'll just look for other agencies as well. I actually looked into that. There was one agency in the city. I attended a seminar for them how to get to Canada. So it's a long journey, but for me I wouldn't say it was maybe quite easy because it was a direct hire from the company. So they also helped us in applying. So before you get a work permit, they have this what you call the labor market opinion. So you cannot apply for a work visa to come to Canada if you don't have that. So once the company received that, they mailed it to us. So that's how I started working on my work visa. So it was, as long as you have that already, that letter, the labor market opinion, then it's easy to start applying for visa. So once it was approved, got my tickets right away and came flying to Canada, left everything. I came to Canada to meet other people that I've never met.
Wow.
It was an adventure.
Amazing. Yeah.
It's an adventure to, it's also my first time to leave my parents, to leave my family. Like I've never gone away from my family longer than a month, but now I was even miles away from my family.
Wow. Kudos to you though.
Yes.
Leaving your parents' home when you graduate is one, but traveling outside miles away, that's a different story. So
Yes.
Good for you. You like to take adventures, you mentioned. So
Yes.
This was a way to start getting into that, right?
Yeah. Oh, and in the Philippines too, one of the things they say when you study, like a lot of the people in the Philippines, they're driven to get into nursing school is because they say you have the opportunity to come to Canada, to the US for greener pastures. So that was one. So now I'm here.
Well, now you have all this dream and idea. You're coming to Canada. You're starting a new life. I'm sure you have all of these plans.
Mm-hmm.
The path, coming to a country with greener pastures, and now you're here. Tell us about that experience, because I'm sure there are a lot of immigrants out there that will benefit from your journey, because it it's not always what we expect.
No.
Right. Well, that's like a common theme
Mm-hmm.
across the immigrant story,
Yeah.
right? There is always one or two hurdle, or but why don't you walk us through your journey since you landed in Canada?
Landed in Canada June of 2010. The company that hired us wanted us to be. The company was building a new facility for dementia and brain injury. So it's more of a supportive living facility. So they're building a new facility for us to work as LPNs. But because we don't have that credential yet, we're not yet licensed here in Canada. So they actually helped us get into Norquest to start studying for LPN. But since we are RNs in the Philippines, Norquest had a program before where they have like a refresher program, I think is what they call. Not entirely sure, but I think that's what it's called. So as RNs, Norquest would review our the curriculum that we studied in the Philippines compared to the curriculum here in Canada. So some of the courses that we took in the Philippines, they were credited. Some of those we needed to challenge the exams, and if you don't pass those exams, you have to take it. And then there are some courses that we need to retake. So for me, I think I only had 5 courses remaining to take before I could write the LPN exam. So our work permit was 1 year. So then, in that process, the company was helping us get our student permit as well, because you cannot study and work at the same time. So you have the work permit, you can work. When you have the student permit, you can study. So then at that time, they were helping us get the study permit. And then because 1 year is so short, so the company was also helping us in renewing our work permit. But at that time also, when we came, the HR person was also transitioning. So there was a new HR person who was not very familiar with the process of work permits here in Canada. So then now we're towards the end of our work permit. So then November 2011, we were called for a meeting. There were 13 of us nurses from the Philippines. So keep in mind, none of us still don't have the student permit at that time. So none of us have really started studying at Norquest. November 2011, they called us for a meeting saying, we cannot do anything about your papers. All our applications got denied. So they could not renew our work permit.
Oh.
And then at that same time, I think a few weeks after that, we received a letter from the immigration saying, you have 3 months to leave the country. Because at that point already, so our work permit was from June 2010 to June 2011. So from June until November, we are on what they call the implied status, because we have an application towards getting a renewal of the work permit. But since we still don't have it, so it's just an implied status, we were still allowed to work. But then when we received that letter from immigration saying 3 months and it's time for you guys to go home. So we were left scrambling. What are we going to do now?
Right.
We don't have credentials as nurses to work. We sent a lot of applications to all other companies to work as RN, but nobody would credit our license from the Philippines. So for me, the easiest jobs, the only companies that would give work permits, that would help you process your work permits readily, are the fast food chains. So some of some of us, they found jobs in McDonald's. For me, I found a job at a Tim Hortons.
Hmm.
So I worked Tim Hortons from actually 6 months. I didn't work because from November 2011, I think I started working again at Tim Hortons in May.
Okay.
Yeah, so at that time, also transitioning as a nurse, in the Philippines, when they say, oh, she's an RN in Canada, she must be big, she must be doing so good. But, like when we got that letter saying that we only have 3 months to leave the country, like for me, there's no way I'm going back to the Philippines.
I can imagine.
I'm too proud to go back to the Philippines because I'm already here in Canada. Why would I go back? So that's why we worked so every day, and that was winter. Every day we have to go out to start looking for jobs. Luckily there was a Tim Hortons that was able to provide for us a work permit. But then again, at that time, it wasn't a renewal, so the process took a little longer for me. So 6 months that I didn't work, from November 2011 until May, 6 months I didn't work. I was almost losing hope because all my savings were also dwindling.
Wow. Because that's what you depended on.
Yes,
those 6 months that you couldn't really work.
Yeah, and we didn't qualify for EI at that time. And we still have to pay our rent, we still have to eat, we still have to pay for transportation, and here we go. It was disheartening.
But good for you, you were able to save up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Most of us did. We were able to save up.
Well, that was smart. You guys had good financial discipline then. Because can you imagine if you didn't have that buffer to fall back on?
Yeah. Wow. And every day we were crying. It's like, especially for myself, I was crying because if I'd go home to my family, I'd be comfortable, yes, but I won't be. I don't know if I'd be able to land an RN job in the Philippines when I go back. But, we kept pushing ourselves. And I think that's one of the good qualities of Filipinos. We're very hopeful. And also we're very resilient. That time, November, I told you, right?
Yeah.
December was coming. That was Christmas. Christmas is big for Filipinos. Somehow, even if we didn't have the jobs, we still managed to celebrate Christmas. So I think that's one thing for Filipinos, the resilience that we had. And, the 13 of us made a little family. Like we treated, we were one family, and then we were, helping each other out in, what do you call this? We cried together, we laughed together. So, yeah.
And you mentioned, though, the 13 nurses, the workers that you travel with, you came from different parts of the Philippines.
Yes.
So you've never met each other.
No,
but here you are,
yeah,
depending on each other, supporting one another.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a family that you created,
we did,
right there. So that must have been very helpful to get through that at that point in time.
Yes, no, they were really good support. Like, I don't know how I would have managed to survive without them, supporting me. Like, we support each other, so it was good to have them.
Well, thank you all out there, all 12 of you that were there for one another. That's an amazing story. The power of having support system. Wow, Frances, that must have been so terrifying. I can't imagine going through that experience. But thank you, because I'm sure there's a lot of immigrants out there that will benefit from this. So now, the company that came with you, things didn't work out with them. They had this plan to help you, transition into, getting a license and all of that. But now you're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you tell us how you work yourself through schooling, working from that status to now being a registered nurse?
Yeah. It was really tough. So, when we lost our job at that time, we stopped working, like, it felt very hopeless. Like, how am I going to achieve that dream now? But while we were working in Tim Hortons, we knew about the study permit already. So I also applied, like, while working at Tim Hortons. I really wanted to be an RN, still be a nurse. I really wanted to achieve that dream. But also at that time I couldn't do so much because I don't have permanent residence. So I'm still a work permit holder. But even working in Tim Hortons wouldn't give me that opportunity to apply as permanent resident. So what I did was apply for a student permit so I could study as an LPN. Since I only have 5 courses at that time to take at Norquest, so I worked on that. I finished all those 5 I got my student permit, I think 2014, August of 2014, and December of 2015, I graduated from the LPN program at Norquest. So then I went back to the old company. They hired me now as an LPN.
Okay. You did all the work.
Yes, I did all the work. I got my LPN now. I could work as an LPN, actual LPN
Nice.
now.
Amazing.
For the company. So they took me back. They hired me as an LPN. Started working. Of course, I wanted a life for myself to build my own family at some point. Got married, had a family, but I still had that dream to be an RN because. While I was an LPN, while I was in Tim Hortons, actually, some of my schoolmates were already finishing up their med school. Some of them are already head nurses. But here I am in Tim Hortons. So that's actually one of the things that pushed me also to continue being an LPN. And I thought that's also like a stepping stone to get my RN degree. So the plan was to get my permanent residence first because was tough. Studying and working in Tim Hortons will make you a little bit of money, not enough to support school because as an international student, I have to pay double the fees compared to Canadian citizens or the permanent residents. But anyway, I started working as an LPN. I still wanted to be an RN, but it was tough. The journey to become an RN is tough because at that time, you have to get assessed by a nursing body. I think it's called NNAS. I can't remember what's the meaning of that, but it's an assessment. You have to be assessed so that they could check, like compare the curriculum that you have. But even so, with that, I know one person who went through that, but they still had to do a bridging at Mount Royal University.
Okay.
At some point also, I have one friend who told me about this process. Apply through the College of Nursing in Ontario, because in Ontario, it's easy for I don't know how easy it was, but once you get through the NNAS, it's easy to assess you in Ontario.
Okay.
And then at the same time, my friend also was so she applied through College of CNO. She applied through CNO. And at the same time, she also registered for the New York NCLEX. So
CNO is the nursing body in Ontario?
Yes.
Licensure body?
Yes. So I think getting into Karna here was a little difficult. So I know a lot of nurses here in Alberta, that's what they did. They applied through College of Nursing in Ontario. And then, I don't know how the process, but I was going to look into that. Okay. But she told me, go apply through CNO because their assessments are easier than Karna. And then she said, you can take the NCLEX for New York. And then you can transfer, once you pass your NCLEX in New York, you can transfer it to CNO. And then from Ontario, you can transfer it to Alberta. So it was quite a process for her. Took her, I think, 2 years to get that done. Because she finished hers in 2022. So then I was going back home in the Philippines 2023. And one of the requirements in CNO was that practice hours. So she told me that you can do 2 weeks of an RN job in the Philippines and then get the hospital to sign you off that you practiced as an RN, and CNO will credit that. So that was my plan, going back home, March of 2023, I was going to do that. So I have a friend already who's already a doctor. He has his own clinic already. So before going home, I called him. I said, hey, I need some hours as an RN. Can I practice at your clinic as an RN? So he said, sure, come over. So then I did that in the Philippines for 2 weeks. Then when I came back here in March, now I hear rumors that says Karna is opening up a pathway for international educated nurses.
Wow, after all that.
After hearing that, already I jumped into my credentials already. I started looking for my old diploma and whatever that I could use as proof of my diploma, my degree in the Philippines in nursing. So then when they said they'll make it easier for internationally educated nurses to be RNs here in Alberta. Because even before that, a lot of provinces in Canada, I think they're easing their pathways for international educated nurses. But Alberta is the last one, I think. I'm not sure, but one of the last provinces to ease out. So then when they said that, the only, especially for me, I have more than 10 years of no RN practice. And they couldn't, I only did how many years of LPN, but that's not considered RN hours. But now one of the requirements for you to be an RN in Alberta, you have to pass, once you pass the NCLEX, that's it. They will, when you pass your NCLEX within that 1 year, they will check you off on the English proficiency. The currency of practice is checked off with that too. So April 1st, as soon as they announced that, I worked hard on it. Took me 2 weeks to get my, eligibility to take the exam. My NCLEX exam, 2 weeks. Karna already provided that eligibility. Whereas in Ontario, it would have taken me 7 months to get that eligibility. But, so then once I got my eligibility, I registered right away to get my exam. I registered on August 29th because that's my birthday. I said on my birthday, I'll be taking that exam. And that would be my gift for myself.
Nice.
So then I took the exam. Day after, I passed it. I was so excited. Because it wasn't easy also because now I have a child. Now I have responsibilities. So even that wasn't very easy because I'm still working full time. I have a child to tend to. And at night I have to be studying. So like for 3 months, that's all I did. Like in the morning I'd wake up to go to work. In the afternoon I go pick up my daughter from her day home. By the time I'm putting her to bed, it's already 9, 10. I still have to clean up the house. And then I give myself 2 to 3 hours to study at night and then wake up. So usually I'd be in bed 2 a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then wake up again at 5, Monday to Friday. That was my routine. So it was tough. But I'm happy I passed that exam.
Wow. Good for you. What a compelling story, Frances. You have been through so much. A lot of people would have just backed down. You know, you're already making money, right?
Yes.
But you had that passion. I know you mentioned you wanted to help people. And of course, you still can help people where you are at, but you wanted more for yourself.
Yes.
Right? So, wow. Thank you so, so much. I can't even believe you're sitting here sharing that because I can't even imagine, all what you've gone through. And I know about the NCLEX exam.
It's tough.
It's a tough exam. So, having a family and how old was your daughter then?
My daughter was 2.
Wow. So
when I was studying.
Can you imagine? Because I know it took me hours every day to get ready.
Yes.
Months of preparation. So, wow, definitely I see a lot of resilience. I see drive, like you had that drive that kept propelling you to get where you wanted to be.
So what I did studying too, it was very rigorous for me because I only had 3 months to prepare because I registered in end of April, so May, June, July. I have 3 months, 3 to 4 months of studying. And this was RN, not LPN. Like LPN, we have similar scope in RN, but like that was my RN experience was a long time ago. So what I did every morning when I go to work, driving from my house to my work was 30 minutes drive. I'd be listening to this lecturer for 30 minutes driving to work. Coming back home, I'm listening to him because I find that at night when I put my girl to sleep, I find that sometimes I'm also sleepy already. I'm tired. So I really have that drive to pass the exam. So like I'm taking it only once. I know people are telling me, oh, you have three chances to pass the NCLEX. I'm like, why would I take 3 when I can take it in 1?
True.
So
yeah. Wow. That's amazing. You did good for yourself. And I'm sure all that work that you had to put in being an RN, it's all paying off now.
Yes.
All right, Frances. Thank you so much for all that you've shared so far. We want to know about your family, your daughter, and family back in the Philippines.
Yeah, so I left my family back home in 2010. Left my mom, my dad, my brother and sister. Went back home, I think, at least 3 times or 4 times already. The last time I went back home was a little bit hard on me. I had to go for my dad's funeral. He was sick for a bit. He he was sick for a bit. I think for a few years. 2019 was he was diagnosed of chronic kidney disease. So after he passed away, I'm the only nurse in the family. So I beat myself up every day before after that, because I say I'm the only nurse in the family and I wasn't able to take care of my family. It was tough, like working away from your family, being away from them. Even the first years, like being here, was tough because the first time I went back home was after, I think, 7 years.
Oh.
That was in 2017. So we left, 2010 we left. 2017 was the first time ever I went back home. And I've lost a few family members then. I lost my grandpa already. But yeah, like they were my inspiration. Like the reason that I drove myself to study, work hard. And then that was when I was taking my LPN. But now when I studied for my RN, I have a little girl who was my inspiration every day. Like every time after I put her to sleep, I always say it's for her.
Oh,
yeah.
So sorry about your dad. May his soul rest in peace, and may his memory continue to live on and on. Just look back on all those experiences you had.
Yes.
Growing up.
One of my friends actually told me, because the last time we went home was when he was alive was in March 2023, and that was the second birthday of my daughter, along with my mom's birthday. My best friend told me she overheard my dad saying how proud he is.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, that's one thing you can hold on to, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, thank you.
Okay, so in one word, how would you describe all what you've shared with us today? Key for clinics.
In one word.
Yeah, I know that's a difficult question, one word, but
challenging. Life is challenging, but again, think once you have that drive to pursue something, I once heard somebody say, like, when you have something in your heart that you want to achieve, keep praying about it. Keep praying about it. And I think that's one thing that helped me also, is that there were a lot of challenges, right, my journey, but that faith that I have that God will see me through after that is one thing that drove me. And also, like, the support of of my family, my friends, and also Yeah, I think that's why when I said Filipinos are very resilient despite the challenges that we face, we come out strong.
So with that being said, what would be your advice to new immigrants and people back, from other countries that are planning to come to Canada, especially those in the nursing workforce? What would be your advice to them? Because it's not always what it seems like. We have all these expectations, but there's a lot of work
Yes.
that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And thank you. Your faith brought you this far.
Yes.
And I know my family is, big on faith, and that's what's been driving all of us all this while. So at least you had, a support system, those other nurses, and then you had your faith, right? You held on to God all throughout this trying times.
Yes. Yeah, so as an immigrant, the first time I came here, I had a dream. And that dream was to become an RN. Now here I am. What I would tell immigrants is that the journey, even the application to come in here is not as easy. Life here is not easy. Nothing is really easy. But once you put your heart into it, you work hard for it. Nothing in life comes easy. Just keep pushing yourself and don't give up on the dream. I think that's one thing for me. Don't give up on your dream. Life will throw you rocks and whatever. Stand up, pick up yourself, continue living the dream.
Wow. Nicely said. Thank you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you being on this platform today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure telling my story. I've always wanted to tell that story.
Thank you.
Now I have that platform.
And thank you that this is the first place, our live narratives is the first platform that you get to share that.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have dreams, in the future to tell more, because I'm sure there's a lot more and there's a lot of people out there that will benefit. So this is just the beginning of Frances telling her story.
I hope my story was encouraging for a lot of people.
I'm sure it is.
There's a lot of immigrants, when they come in here, they think everything is laid out easy for them, but it's not. Not everything is easy. So
thank
you. I hope that's encouraging.
Yeah. Thank you for being that voice here on Our Lives Narratives.
Thank you for having me.
One of the voices to our immigrant population out there. Thank you so much. All right. It's been quite the episode, some emotions going on, and we really appreciate Frances for just opening up. And I'm pretty much sure that her story will impact the whole world. Thank you all for listening to Our Lives Narratives. Continue to support us through all of our social media platforms, Medan Productions on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. We appreciate you all. Until we meet and see again, it's our lives, our stories, and have a good evening. Take care. Bye-bye.